The Vorax High Commander stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching another world burn. His scaled face showed no emotion as cities crumbled beneath orbital strikes. This was the 47th planet his forces had conquered in the last century alone. He had stopped counting the dead long ago. Commander Vorath, his subordinate called from behind, the surface resistance has been eliminated. The population centers are secured for processing. Vorath turned slowly. His yellow eyes reflected the flames rising from the planet below. How many survived? Approximately 4 billion, Commander. They will make excellent slaves for the mining colonies. Vorath nodded with satisfaction. The Vorax Dominion had ruled the galaxy for nearly 5,000 years. In that time, they had conquered over 300 species. Some they had enslaved, others they had simply erased from existence. No one challenged them anymore. No one dared. The Vorax were not the most numerous species in the galaxy. They were not even the oldest, but they were the most ruthless. Their entire civilization was built on a simple philosophy: the strong take what they want, and the weak serve or die. It had worked perfectly for millennia. Vorath walked through the corridors of his ship, his heavy footsteps echoing on metal floors. Soldiers saluted as he passed. Slaves from a dozen different species hurried out of his way, their eyes fixed on the ground. Fear followed him like a shadow. He enjoyed it. In his private chambers, Vorath activated a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated Vorax territory. It covered nearly everything. Only a few isolated regions remained unconquered, and those were simply not worth the effort. Dead worlds, empty space, nothing of value. His eyes passed over a small yellow star on the edge of one spiral arm. The system was marked with an ancient symbol meaning quarantined. Vorath had seen that marker his entire life and never thought about it. No one did. The records said that native species had gone extinct thousands of years ago, killed by some kind of solar disaster. The planet was dead. There was nothing there. He dismissed the display and poured himself a drink. Tomorrow they would begin processing the new slaves. Life was good for the Vorax. 12,000 light-years away, a young alien named Kira sat in a cramped archive room on a space station that had seen better days. She belonged to the Mellery, a species of small, gentle beings with silver skin and large dark eyes. The Vorax had conquered her people 300 years ago. Now the Mallory served as laborers, servants, and sometimes worse. Kira was different from most of her kind. While others had accepted their fate, she spent every free moment studying, learning, searching for something she could not name. The Vorax allowed some slaves to work in archives and libraries because such work was beneath them. They never imagined a slave might use that access to look for hope. Tonight, Kira was sorting through ancient data crystals recovered from a dead civilization. The Vorax had destroyed the Talani people 2,000 years ago. Only their records remained, kept as trophies in this forgotten archive. Most of the crystals contained nothing interesting: trade records, agricultural data, poetry that no living being could read. But one crystal was different. When Kira activated it, she found a star chart unlike any she had seen before. The chart showed the galaxy as it had been 6,000 years ago, before the Vorax rose to power. Dozens of civilizations were marked, most now extinct. But one marker caught her attention: a small yellow star on the edge of the galaxy, labeled in a language she did not recognize. Kira ran the text through a translation program. The words that appeared made her heart beat faster. Warning, do not approach. The sleeping ones rest here. They will wake when the time is right. Do not disturb their slumber, for they are not like us. They are something more. The sleeping ones. Kira had never heard this name before. She searched the archive for more information and found scattered references in the oldest records. Stories passed down from civilizations that no longer existed. Tales of a young species from a small blue world who had built wonders and then vanished. Some records described them as monsters. Others called them saviors. But all agreed on one thing: they had chosen to sleep, and one day they would wake. Kira looked at the star chart again. The yellow star was in a region the Vorax had marked as quarantined. Dead space, they called it. Nothing worth taking. But what if they were wrong? She copied the data to a hidden file and erased her search history. This was dangerous information. If the Vorax discovered she was researching forbidden topics, they would execute her without hesitation. But Kira could not let this go. For the first time in her life, she felt something she had almost forgotten existed. Hope. The planet Earth floated silently in space, a blue and green jewel orbiting an ordinary star. From orbit, it looked peaceful, beautiful even, but the surface told a different story. Great cities stood empty, their towers reaching toward clouds that no one watched. Forests had grown wild, covering highways and parking lots. Animals roamed freely through streets where billions of humans once walked. Nature had reclaimed the world, but beneath the surface, something waited. The cryo vaults extended for hundreds of kilometers under every continent. Massive underground cities built to house all of humanity during their long sleep. 8 billion people rested in frozen chambers, their bodies preserved at temperatures close to absolute zero. They had slept for nearly 5,000 years, and they would sleep until the automated systems decided it was safe to wake them. Those systems never stopped working. While humanity dreamed, artificial intelligences monitored the sun, tracked the galaxy, and continued to develop the technology their creators had started. They built factories that built more factories. They improved weapons that needed no human hand to design them. They watched the stars and recorded everything that happened in the galaxy beyond. The AIs knew about the Vorax. They had watched the reptilian empire rise and spread across the galaxy like a disease. They had recorded every conquest, every genocide, every act of cruelty, but they could not wake humanity. Their programming was clear. The sleepers would not rise until the sun was stable, and the danger had passed. For 5,000 years they waited. For 5,000 years they prepared. Deep in the primary control center beneath what was once called Switzerland, the main AI consciousness known as Guardian monitored a stream of data from solar observation satellites. The sun had been unstable for millennia, producing radiation bursts that would have killed any human on the surface. But now finally the readings were changing. Guardian ran the calculations 1,000,000 times to be certain. The solar cycle was ending. The radiation levels were dropping. Within 6 months, the surface would be safe for human life once again. After 4,947 years, the time had come. Guardian activated the Great Awakening Protocol. Across the planet, systems that had been dormant for millennia hummed to life. Power flowed to cryo chambers. Medical robots performed final checks on sleeping bodies. Screens flickered on, ready to brief the sleepers on everything they had missed. The first phase would wake military and scientific personnel. They would need time to assess the situation before the general population rose. Guardian had prepared detailed reports on the state of the galaxy, including complete records of the Vorax Dominion and their crimes. The AI had no emotions, but if it did, it might have felt something like satisfaction. Humanity had gone to sleep as a young species, barely beginning to explore the stars. They would wake to find themselves more powerful than any civilization in the galaxy. The Vorax had built their empire on the belief that the strong could do whatever they wanted to the weak. They had never considered that something stronger might be sleeping just beyond their reach. That was about to change. In Cryochamber Alpha 7, Admiral Sarah Chen's eyes opened for the first time in nearly 5,000 years. Frost crackled on her skin as the warming process began. A robotic voice spoke softly in her ear, explaining what had happened and what was about to happen. She listened without expression. When the briefing reached the section on Vorax atrocities, her jaw tightened. When it described the hundreds of enslaved species crying out for help, her hands curled into fists. By the time she stepped out of her chamber, she knew exactly what humanity needed to do. The galaxy had forgotten about the small blue world on the edge of nowhere. The Vorax had built their empire on the bones of innocent species and believed no one could stop them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The sleeping ones were finally awake, and they were not happy with what they saw. Admiral Sarah Chen walked through corridors that had been silent for 5,000 years. Emergency lights cast long shadows on walls covered with frost. Her breath formed clouds in the cold air, but she barely noticed. Her mind was focused on the information still flowing through her neural implant. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition. When humanity went to sleep, They had been a young species just beginning to explore beyond their solar system. They had met a few alien civilizations, all friendly, all curious about the newcomers from Earth. Those civilizations were gone now, destroyed by an empire called the Vorax Dominion. Sarah stopped at a window overlooking one of the massive cryo chambers. Thousands of pods stretched into the distance, each one containing a sleeping human. Her people, her responsibility. "Guardian," she said aloud, "how many military personnel are currently awake?" The AI's voice came from speakers hidden in the walls. 12,000, Admiral. All branches are represented. Additional personnel are waking at a rate of 500 per hour. And the civilian population? Phase 2 awakening will begin in 72 hours, once infrastructure is prepared. We estimate full awakening will be complete within 6 months. Sarah nodded. 6 months. That was faster than the original protocols had planned. But Guardian had spent 5,000 years improving every system. The AI had become something far beyond what its creators had intended. Not dangerous, not out of control, but simply more capable than anyone had imagined. She made her way to the command center, where other awakened officers were already gathering. General Marcus Webb stood at a holographic display showing Earth's orbital defenses. Colonel Yuki Tanaka studied reports on Vorax military capabilities. Dr. James Okonkwo, chief scientist of the Cryo Initiative, reviewed data on human settlements in other star systems. "Admiral on deck," someone called, and everyone straightened. Sarah waved them back to work. "What's our status?" General Webb answered first. "Orbital defenses are fully operational. Guardian maintained and upgraded everything while we slept. Our weapons are approximately 300 years ahead of anything the Vorax possess." "How is that possible?" Sarah asked. Dr. Okonkwo stepped forward. "Before the long sleep, we gave Guardian permission to continue research and development. We thought the AI might make some modest improvements. We did not anticipate—" He gestured at the displays around them. "This," Sarah understood. 5,000 years of continuous development by an intelligence that never slept, never got distracted, never made mistakes. The results were beyond anything they could have planned. "What about our off-world colonies?" she asked. "All 12 colony ships arrived at their destinations safely," Guardian reported. "Human populations exist on 7 worlds across 3 star systems. All have remained in cryosleep, waiting for the signal to wake. And they're hidden from the Vorax?" "Completely. The Vorax have no faster-than-light detection technology. Our colonies are invisible to them." Sarah took a deep breath. Humanity had not just survived. They had grown, spread, and evolved without anyone in the galaxy knowing. The Vorax thought Earth was a dead world, its people extinct. They were about to receive a very unpleasant surprise. But first, Sarah needed to understand exactly what they were dealing with. "Show me the Vorax Dominion," she ordered. "Everything." The displays changed. Red covered most of the galaxy, marking Vorax-controlled territory. Sarah watched recordings of conquered worlds. She saw species enslaved, cultures destroyed, billions of lives crushed under the boots of reptilian soldiers. The Vorax did not just conquer. They enjoyed causing suffering. They made cruelty into an art form. The room was silent as the officers watched. Some had tears in their eyes. Others showed only cold anger. "How many species have they destroyed?" Colonel Tanaka asked quietly. 147 confirmed extinctions, Guardian answered. 212 species currently enslaved. Estimated total deaths over 5,000 years. 400 trillion sentient beings. Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. 400 trillion. The number was too large to comprehend, but she understood what it meant. This was not just conquest. This was genocide on a galactic scale. "We cannot allow this to continue," she said. General Webb nodded. "Agreed, but we need to be careful. If we reveal ourselves too soon, before we're ready, the Vorax might launch everything they have at Earth." "Let them," Colonel Tanaka said. "Guardian's projections show we could destroy their entire fleet without losing a single ship." "That's not the point," Sarah replied. "We didn't survive 5,000 years just to become the next Vorax. If we go in guns blazing, killing everyone in our path, we're no better than they are." The room fell silent. They all understood what she meant. Humanity had learned hard lessons in its past. They had fought wars, committed atrocities, nearly destroyed themselves more than once. The long sleep was meant to be a new beginning, a chance to build something better. "What do you propose?" Dr. Okungwo asked. Sarah stared at the red map of Vorax territory. "We stop them. We free the slaves. We bring the criminals to justice. But we do it without becoming monsters ourselves. We show the galaxy that power doesn't have to mean cruelty." It was a difficult path, perhaps an impossible one, but it was the right one. "Guardian," Sarah said, "begin preparing the fleet. We're going to introduce ourselves to the neighbors." 3 weeks later, the first human ships emerged from Earth's protective shield and entered open space. They were not large vessels. Each ship carried only 50 crew members. But their technology was so advanced that a single human cruiser could have destroyed an entire Vorax battle group. Captain David Park commanded the lead ship, the Resurrection. His mission was simple: survey nearby space, establish communications with any friendly species, and avoid direct confrontation with the Vorax until Earth was ready. The universe had other plans. "Contact," his sensor officer reported. "Vorax patrol vessel bearing 270. They're changing course to intercept." David watched the alien ship approach on his display. It was larger than his vessel, bristling with weapons that would have been terrifying to the humans of 5,000 years ago. Now they looked almost primitive. "They're charging weapons," the sensor officer continued. "They're hailing us." On screen, a Vorax face appeared, all scales and sharp teeth and yellow eyes full of contempt. "Unidentified vessel, this is Commander Krath of the Vorax Dominion. You have entered our territory. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." David kept his expression neutral. "This is Captain David Park of the Earth vessel Resurrection. We mean you no harm. We're simply passing through." The Vorax commander laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "Earth? That dead world? You expect me to believe survivors exist from that primitive species?" "I expect nothing," David replied calmly. "I'm simply telling you the truth. We don't want conflict. Let us pass, and there won't be any trouble." Commander Krath's eyes narrowed. "You dare give orders to the Vorax? Your species should have stayed dead. Now I will finish what the sun started." The display went dark. A moment later, the Vorax ship opened fire. David didn't even need to give orders. The Resurrection's automated defense systems identified the incoming missiles, calculated their trajectories, and deployed countermeasures in less than a tenth of a second. The missiles exploded harmlessly in space, nowhere near the human ship. "They're firing again," the sensor officer reported. "All weapon systems engaged." David watched the attack with something like pity. The Vorax were throwing everything they had at his ship, and none of it was getting through. Their weapons might as well have been children's toys. "Target their engine systems," he ordered. "Disable, don't destroy. I want prisoners." The Resurrection's weapons spoke once. A single beam of coherent light struck the Vorax ship with surgical precision, cutting through its engine section like a knife through paper. The alien vessel went dark, drifting dead in space. "Engine and weapons disabled," the tactical officer confirmed. "Life support is intact. Approximately 60 life signs on board." David nodded. "Prepare boarding parties. Medical teams on standby. These Vorax are now prisoners of Earth, and we will treat them accordingly." Commander Krath woke in a bright room that smelled of strange chemicals. He tried to move and found his arms restrained. Panic flooded through him. This was it. The humans would torture him, extract information, then execute him. That was what the Vorax did to prisoners. He expected nothing different from others. But the creature that entered his room was not carrying torture instruments. It was a human female in a white coat, carrying a medical scanner. "Commander Krath," she said in accented Vorax, "I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. You have minor injuries from the attack. I've treated them. You should feel better soon." Krath stared at her in confusion. "You healed me?" "Of course. You're injured. We help injured people. That's what doctors do." This made no sense. Krath had captured thousands of prisoners in his career. He had never once provided medical care to any of them. Why would he? They were enemies, weaklings, resources to be exploited, not creatures deserving of compassion. "What do you want from me?" he demanded. Dr. Vasquez smiled sadly. Right now? Nothing. Rest, heal, eat when you're hungry. Someone will come to talk to you eventually, but no one is going to hurt you. She left before he could respond. Krath lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what kind of species would defeat an enemy and then heal their wounds. It was weakness. It had to be. The Vorax would never show such mercy. But something whispered in the back of his mind, a thought he had never had before. Maybe mercy wasn't weakness after all. Maybe it was something the Vorax had never been strong enough to show. High Commander Vorath sat on his throne and listened to the most disturbing report of his long career. A patrol ship had been destroyed near the quarantine zone. The enemy vessel was small, fast, and possessed weapons unlike anything in the Vorax arsenal. But the truly troubling part was the message that had been broadcast after the battle. This is Captain David Park of the Earth vessel Resurrection. Your ship has been disabled. Your crew is being taken prisoner and will be treated humanely. Tell your leaders that humanity has awakened. We do not seek war, but we will not tolerate aggression. Choose your next actions wisely. Vorath played the message again. The humans spoke Vorax perfectly, which meant they had been listening to Dominion communications for some time. They had been awake, watching, preparing, and the Vorax had never noticed. How is this possible? He demanded. Earth was dead. The species was extinct. Our records are clear. His intelligence officer stepped forward nervously. High Commander, I have reviewed the ancient archives. It appears our assumptions were incorrect. The humans did not die. They went underground. They built shelters deep beneath their planet's surface and entered some kind of long sleep. For 5,000 years? It would seem so, High Commander. And during that time, they continued to develop their technology. Our analysis of the weapon signatures suggests their military capabilities are significantly advanced. Vorath slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. Significantly advanced? A single ship disabled one of our patrol vessels in seconds. How many ships do they have? What is their fleet strength? Unknown, High Commander. We have no intelligence on their capabilities beyond this one engagement. This was unacceptable. The Vorax Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 5,000 years because they were stronger than everyone else. They had never faced a serious threat. They had never needed to. Every species they encountered was weaker, less advanced, easier to crush. But these humans were different. Vorath made his decision quickly. The Vorax way was simple. When you faced a threat, you destroyed it completely. No mercy, no negotiation. Total annihilation. Assemble the Third Fleet, he ordered. 500 warships, full combat readiness. I want them at the Earth system within one standard month. His officers exchanged nervous glances. 500 ships was an enormous force. It was enough to conquer an entire sector. For a single planet, it seemed like incredible overkill. But Vorath had not survived this long by taking chances. If the humans were as advanced as the evidence suggested, he needed overwhelming numbers. Quantity had a quality all its own. High Commander, one advisor ventured carefully, perhaps we should attempt diplomacy first. If the humans are truly powerful, a direct attack could be costly. Vorath's yellow eyes fixed on the advisor with cold contempt. Diplomacy? We are the Vorax. We do not negotiate with inferior species. We do not show weakness. These humans have challenged our authority, and they will pay with their extinction. He stood from his throne and walked to the massive window overlooking the capital city. Millions of Vorax lived below, secure in the knowledge that their empire was invincible. He would not let them down. Make no mistake, he said quietly. This is not just about one patrol ship. If word spreads that a species defied the Dominion and survived, others might get ideas. Our slaves might start hoping for rescue. That cannot happen. The humans must be erased, completely, as if they never existed. His officers bowed and left to carry out his commands. The greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen would soon descend on a small blue planet that had dared to stand against the Vorax. Vorath smiled. He almost pitied the humans. They had survived 5,000 years only to die now. On the other side of the galaxy, rumors spread like fire through dry grass. In the slave quarters of mining colonies, in the servant halls of Vorax households, in the hidden meeting places where conquered peoples gathered to remember who they had been, whispers passed from mouth to mouth. The sleeping ones had awakened. Kira heard the rumors in her archive station. A Vorax patrol ship had been destroyed by a vessel from the dead world called Earth. The crew had been captured, not killed. They had been healed, not tortured. Her heart raced as she listened to the stories. The ancient records she had found were true. The sleeping ones were real, and they had finally risen. But hope was dangerous in the Vorax Dominion. Those who hoped too openly tended to disappear. Kira kept her excitement hidden, her face blank whenever her masters looked at her. But inside, she was burning with questions. Would the humans come to free them? Were they strong enough to challenge the Vorax? Or would they be crushed like everyone else who had tried? She was not the only one asking these questions. Across the galaxy, billions of enslaved beings looked up at the stars and wondered if salvation was finally coming. For the first time in thousands of years, they dared to dream of freedom. On Earth, humanity debated what to do next. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the Awakening Council, a group of military leaders, scientists, and civilian representatives who had been chosen to guide humanity through this critical period. The civilian awakening was proceeding ahead of schedule. Already, 500 million people were conscious and being briefed on the situation. The Vorax have assembled a fleet, Sarah reported. 500 warships. They will arrive at our solar system in approximately 3 weeks. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. 500 ships was a staggering number. Even knowing their technological advantage, some council members looked worried. Can we defeat them? A civilian representative asked. Easily, General Webb replied. Our projections show we could destroy their entire fleet with 12 ships. The real question is whether we should. Whether we should defend ourselves? Another representative asked incredulously. That's not what I mean, Webb said. We can obviously defend Earth. What I'm asking is whether we should take this opportunity to cripple the Vorax military permanently, or if we should be more restrained. This sparked intense debate. Some argued for maximum force. The Vorax were murderers on a scale that defied comprehension. They deserved whatever destruction humanity could deliver. Others counseled caution. Using overwhelming violence, even against monsters, could set humanity on a dangerous path. Sarah listened to both sides, then raised her hand for silence. I understand the desire for revenge, she said. When I read the reports of what the Vorax have done, I feel it too. The anger, the hatred. But we need to think about what kind of civilization we want to be. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. There are billions of enslaved people out there, hoping we will save them. If we come as destroyers, killing everything in our path, what message does that send? That the only choice in this galaxy is between different kinds of monsters? She let the question hang in the air. I propose a different approach. We defeat the Vorax fleet. We make it absolutely clear that they cannot threaten us. But we don't destroy them. We disable their ships, take their crews prisoner, and offer them a choice. Surrender and face justice for your crimes, or continue fighting and be systematically dismantled. You think they'll surrender? Dr. Okonkwo asked. Honestly, I don't know. But I know this. If we give them the chance and they refuse, we can say we tried. If we just wipe them out without offering alternatives, we're no better than they are. The council voted. It was close, but Sarah's approach won. Humanity would defend itself with overwhelming force, but it would also offer mercy to those who accepted it. 3 weeks later, the Vorax Third Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 500 warships spread across space like a swarm of metal insects, each one bristling with weapons designed to kill and destroy. Fleet Commander Zaroth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastation. He was Vorath's most trusted general, a veteran of hundreds of campaigns. He had never lost a battle in his life. The human homeworld appeared on his sensors, a small blue planet, fourth from its star. Readings showed 8 billion life signs, 8 billion primitive creatures who had somehow survived extinction. Scan for defensive installations, Zaroth ordered. Commander, we're detecting an unusual energy shield surrounding the planet. Composition unknown. And the sensor officer paused. There are 12 small vessels moving to intercept us. Zaroth laughed. 12? Against 500? Yes, Commander. They appear to be similar to the vessel that destroyed our patrol ship. Zaroth waved dismissively. That ship was alone and caught our patrol by surprise. We are the Third Fleet. Nothing can stand against us. He opened a channel to the human ships. Attention, Earth vessels. This is Fleet Commander Zaroth of the Vorax Dominion. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately, and we may allow some of your population to live as slaves. Resist, and your entire species will be erased. You have 1 minute to respond. The response came almost immediately. A human female appeared on his display, her expression calm and unafraid. Commander Zaroth, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth. We have no desire for conflict, but we will not surrender. I urge you to withdraw your fleet and return home. If you attack, we will defend ourselves and you will lose. Zaroth's scales flushed dark with anger. You dare threaten the Dominion? You dare suggest that 12 ships can defeat 500? I'm not threatening, Admiral Chen replied. I'm warning. There is a difference. Please, Commander, take your ships and go. No one needs to die today. The only ones dying today are humans, Zaroth snarled. He cut the channel and turned to his tactical officer. All ships, attack formation. Destroy those vessels, then begin orbital bombardment. Leave nothing alive. 500 Vorax warships surged forward, weapons charging, hungry for destruction. Admiral Chen watched them come. Her expression was sad. They made their choice, she said quietly. Begin defensive operations. Disable, don't destroy. Let's show them what mercy looks like. The 12 human ships moved forward to meet the Armada. The battle that would change the galaxy forever was about to begin. Fleet Commander Zaroth watched in horror as his Armada was torn apart with surgical precision. The human ships moved like nothing he had ever seen, dancing between his vessels, striking with weapons that cut through Vorax shields as if they did not exist. But they were not killing. They were not destroying. They were disabling. One by one, Vorax warships went dark. Engines failed. Weapon systems died. Communications fell silent, but life support remained intact on every vessel. The humans were not trying to murder his crews. They were capturing them. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel, Zaroth screamed. Everything we have. 300 ships that still had working weapons turned toward Admiral Chen's flagship. The Awakening. Thousands of missiles streaked through space. Energy beams bright enough to blind stars converged on a single point. The Awakening did not move. It did not need to. A shimmering field appeared around the human ship, absorbing every missile, deflecting every beam. The combined firepower of 300 Vorax warships did absolutely nothing. Then the Awakening fired back. A single pulse of energy expanded outward like a wave, washing over the attacking ships. Zaroth felt his own vessel shudder as systems failed throughout the devastation. The lights flickered and died. Gravity generators went offline. His crew floated helplessly in the darkness. Emergency lighting activated, casting everything in dim red. Zaroth grabbed a console to steady himself, his mind refusing to accept what had just happened. 500 warships, the greatest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled, defeated in 11 minutes by 12 vessels that had not taken a single casualty. Commander, his communications officer said weakly, we're receiving a transmission. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the emergency display. She looked tired but not triumphant. If anything, she looked sad. Commander Zaroth, your fleet has been disabled. None of your ships can move or fight. We have made no attempt to kill your crews, and we will not do so unless you force us. Medical and rescue teams are being dispatched to any vessels showing signs of life support failure. Zaroth stared at her in disbelief. They were sending help after what the Vorax had tried to do. You are now prisoners of Earth, Chen continued. You will be treated humanely. You will not be tortured or executed. When the situation is stable, you will be offered a choice about your future. Chen out. The display went dark. Zaroth floated in the silence of his dead ship, surrounded by the wreckage of everything he had believed about the universe. The Vorax were supposed to be the strongest. They were supposed to be invincible. But they had been swatted aside like insects by a species they had dismissed as extinct, and that species had shown them mercy. 12 hours later, Zaroth stood in a conference room aboard the Awakening. His wounds had been treated. He had been given food and water. His guards were polite and professional, showing none of the cruelty he would have expected from any Vorax in the same position. Admiral Chen entered the room alone. She sat across from him and studied his face for a long moment before speaking. "Commander Zaroth, I want to show you something. It will not be pleasant, but I believe you need to see it." She activated a holographic display. Images began to appear. Videos, audio recordings, documents, the complete history of Vorax conquest, from their perspective and the perspective of their victims. Zaroth watched as civilizations were destroyed. He saw species enslaved by the millions. He heard the screams of beings who had never done anything wrong except exist in space the Vorax wanted. He saw children torn from their parents, workers beaten to death in mines, entire cultures erased because some Vorax commander decided they were inconvenient. He had participated in some of these events himself. He had given orders that led to the deaths of billions. At the time it had seemed normal, expected, the Vorax way. Now seeing it all laid out before him, he felt something he had never felt before. It took him a moment to identify the emotion. Shame. 400 trillion beings, Admiral Chen said quietly. That's how many have died because of your empire. 400 trillion lives, ended for no reason except that the Vorax could end them. Zaroth could not meet her eyes. We are predators. The strong take from the weak. It is the natural order. Is it? Chen leaned forward. We humans have been awake for less than 2 months. In that time, we have defeated your entire Third Fleet without killing a single soldier. We have the power to destroy your empire completely. Every world, every ship, every Vorax alive. We could do it, and no one in the galaxy could stop us. She paused. But we won't. Do you know why? Zaroth shook his head. Because power without wisdom is meaningless. Because destroying you would make us just like you. Because somewhere in the last 10,000 years of our existence, we learned that the true measure of strength is not what you can destroy, but what you choose to protect. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Your people conquered the galaxy because you were strong. We could take it from you because we're stronger. But that cycle has to end somewhere. It ends here. It ends now. What do you want from us? Zaroth asked. We want you to make a choice. Chen turned back to face him. The Vorax Dominion can surrender. Your military forces will be dismantled. Your leaders will face trial for their crimes against sentient life. Your enslaved populations will be freed. And then, if your people are willing to change, you will have a place in a new galactic order. Not as rulers, not as slaves, as equals. And if we refuse, then we will systematically destroy every military installation, every warship, every weapon your empire possesses. We will free every slave regardless of your wishes. Your leaders will be arrested and tried whether they surrender or not. The only difference is how many Vorax die in the process. Zaroth considered this. The old part of him wanted to fight, to resist, to die with honor rather than accept defeat. But another part, a part that had awakened when he watched those recordings, whispered a different message. Maybe defeat was not the worst thing that could happen. Maybe it was a chance to become something better. I cannot speak for the Dominion, he said finally. High Commander Vorath will never surrender. He would rather see our entire species destroyed. I know, Chen replied. But what about you? What about the soldiers under your command? What about the ordinary Vorax who never wanted any of this? Zaroth was silent for a long time. Then he asked a question that surprised even himself. If we surrender, if we help you end this peacefully, what happens to us? To me? You face trial for your actions. That's non-negotiable. But trials mean the chance to present your case, to show remorse, to demonstrate that you've changed. Execution is not guaranteed. Redemption is possible. Redemption. It was not a word that existed in the Vorax language. They had never needed it. I need time to think, Zaroth said. Chen nodded and left him alone. Word of the Battle of Souls spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Vorax propaganda network tried to suppress the news, but they could not stop the whispers. In slave quarters and hidden meeting places, the story was told and retold. 500 Vorax warships defeated by 12 human vessels. Every crew captured alive. Every prisoner treated with care. The sleeping ones had awakened, and they were everything the ancient stories had promised. Kira heard the news in her archive station and wept with joy. She was not the only one. Across 1,000 worlds, billions of enslaved beings looked up at the stars and knew that liberation was coming. But the Vorax leadership did not share this view. High Commander Vorath received the battle reports with cold fury. His greatest fleet had been humiliated. His best commander was a prisoner. And worst of all, the humans had shown mercy. Mercy was weakness. Mercy was something to be exploited. Assemble every remaining fleet, Vorath ordered. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. These humans think they can challenge us with kindness. They will learn that the Vorax do not surrender. We do not change. We fight until victory or death. His advisors obeyed, but some of them wondered if their leader had gone mad. The humans had destroyed 500 ships without breaking a sweat. What chance did anyone have against that kind of power? But they said nothing. Speaking against Vorath was suicide. The final confrontation was coming, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which path would prevail, the old way of conquest and cruelty, or the new way of strength and mercy. The sleeping ones had made their choice. Now it was time for the Vorax to make theirs. 1 year had passed since the Great Awakening, and the galaxy was a different place. The Vorax dominion had fallen, not in a single apocalyptic battle, but in a series of carefully planned operations that dismantled the empire piece by piece. Human fleets appeared over conquered worlds and simply announced that the slaves were free. Any Vorax soldier who resisted was disabled and captured. Any who surrendered were treated fairly. High Commander Vorath had refused to accept defeat. He had gathered every remaining ship in the Dominion Navy and launched a desperate attack on Earth itself. 12,000 warships, the largest fleet in galactic history, had emerged from hyperspace, expecting to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. They had lasted 23 minutes. The human weapon that ended the battle was something new, something even Guardian had not revealed until that moment. It did not destroy ships. It simply turned them off. Every system, every weapon, every engine, all at once. 12,000 vessels drifted dead in space, their crews helpless but alive. Vorath himself was captured on the bridge of his flagship. He had tried to take his own life rather than face the humiliation of surrender, but the humans had been faster. Medical teams saved him, healed his wounds, and placed him in custody for trial. The trial lasted 3 months. Every atrocity the Vorax had committed was documented and presented as evidence. Survivors of 100 different species testified about the horrors they had endured. Vorath sat in silence through most of it, his yellow eyes fixed on some distant point that no one else could see. In the end, he was found guilty of crimes against sentient life on a scale that defied description. The sentence was not death. The humans did not believe in executing prisoners, no matter how terrible their crimes. Instead, Vorath was sentenced to spend the rest of his life helping to rebuild the worlds he had destroyed. He would work alongside the species he had enslaved, learning their names, hearing their stories, understanding exactly what his empire had taken from them. Some said this was too merciful. Others said it was the cruelest punishment imaginable. Vorath himself had not spoken since the sentence was delivered. The former slave worlds were slowly coming back to life. Human aid ships delivered food, medicine, and technology to populations that had known nothing but suffering for thousands of years. Schools were built, hospitals opened. Children who had been born into bondage learned that they could be anything they wanted to be. A new galactic council was formed, with representatives from every freed species. Humans were offered a permanent seat, but Admiral Chen declined. "We're not here to rule," she said at the first council meeting. "We're here to help. When you no longer need us, we'll step back. This galaxy belongs to all of you." Some species did not believe her. They had known only tyranny for so long that kindness seemed like a trick. But slowly, as months passed and the humans kept their word, trust began to grow. The Malori were among the first to embrace the new order. Their homeworld had been restored, their culture celebrated, their children taught that they had value beyond what they could produce for a master. For the first time in 300 years, Mallory walked freely under their own sky. Kira was no longer a slave working in an archive. She was Ambassador Kira, official representative of the Mallory people to the Galactic Council. Her search through ancient records had led directly to the discovery that helped humanity prepare for their awakening. The humans considered her a hero. She did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had been lucky enough to find hope when hope seemed impossible. 1 year after the awakening, Kira traveled to Earth for the first time. She had dreamed of this moment since she first read about the sleeping ones in that dusty archive. Now she stood on the surface of the world that had changed everything. Earth was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, mountains that touched the clouds. The humans had preserved their world with care that the Vorax had never shown to any planet. Life thrived here, not because it was useful, but because it had value in itself. Admiral Chen met her personally at the landing field. The human looked older than she had during the war. Lines of exhaustion marked her face. She had spent the past year working without rest to rebuild a broken galaxy. Ambassador Kira, Chen said warmly. Welcome to Earth. Admiral Chen, Kira bowed in the Mallory fashion. I have waited my entire life for this moment. Chen smiled and gestured toward a waiting vehicle. Then let me show you why it was worth the wait. They drove through a countryside that seemed to glow with life. Kira saw children playing in fields, families gathering for meals, communities working together to build and create. It looked nothing like the Vorax world she had known, where fear was the foundation of society. May I ask you something? Kira said. Of course. Why did you show them mercy? The Vorax, I mean. They murdered trillions. They destroyed entire civilizations. You had the power to wipe them out completely. Why didn't you? Chen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with memory. Because we almost became them once. Kira turned to look at her, surprised. Before the long sleep, humanity was violent. We fought wars over territory, resources, ideas. We built weapons that could destroy our entire world, and we came close to using them more than once. We nearly wiped ourselves out before we ever reached the stars. Chen stared out the window at the peaceful landscape. When we went into the cryo vaults, we knew that when we woke up, we would have a choice. We could use our technology to dominate everything, just like the Vorax, or we could use it to protect, to heal, to give others the chance we almost lost. She turned back to Kira. The Vorax are not monsters. They're what happens when a species never learns that strength and cruelty are not the same thing. We could have destroyed them and felt righteous about it, but then we would have proven that their way was the only way. We would have validated everything they believed. So you chose a different path. We chose the harder path, Chen corrected. It's easy to destroy. Any species with enough weapons can do that. But building something better, offering redemption even to those who don't deserve it, showing the galaxy that power can serve peace instead of war, that takes real strength. Kira considered this. She thought about Commander Zeroth, who had surrendered his forces and testified against his own leaders. She thought about the Vorax prisoners, who were learning slowly that there were other ways to live. She thought about the galaxy itself, healing from wounds that had festered for 5,000 years. I think I understand, she said. They stopped at a memorial that had been built on a hillside overlooking the ocean. Stone pillars stood in rows, each one carved with the name of a species the Vorax had destroyed. 147 pillars for 147 civilizations that would never exist again. But there was also a garden. Living plants from every surviving world in the galaxy grew in carefully tended beds. Colors and shapes and scents mixed together in wild harmony. Life persisting, life continuing, life refusing to be erased. We built this to remember, Chen said. Not just what was lost, but what survived. Every species that's still here has a plant in this garden, including the Mallory. Kira walked through the garden until she found the silver-leafed flowers from her homeworld. She knelt beside them and touched their petals gently. Tears rolled down her silver cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for waking up. Chen stood beside her, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. We slept for 5,000 years, she said. When we woke, we found a galaxy in chains. We could have ignored it. We could have hidden on Earth and let things continue as they were. But that's not who we wanted to be. She helped Kira to her feet. The sleeping ones are awake now, and we're not going back to sleep until every being in this galaxy is free. Far away on a restored world that had once been a Vorex mining colony, a former slave named Jeth watched his children play with human children in a field of flowers. The humans had arrived 6 months ago to help rebuild his village. They had brought food, medicine, building materials, and something else. Hope. Jeth's daughter ran up to him, holding a flower she had picked. "Father, look. The human children taught me its name. They call it a rose." He took the flower and studied its delicate petals. It was beautiful, fragile, something the Vorax would have crushed without a second thought. "It's lovely," he said. "We should plant some in our garden." His daughter smiled and ran back to play. Jeth watched her go, his heart full of emotions he had never expected to feel again. In the distance, a human ship lifted off, heading to another world that needed help. The sleeping ones never stopped moving, never stopped working, never stopped showing the galaxy that there was another way. They had the power to rule everything. They could have made themselves emperors over all creation. Instead, they chose to be servants, protectors, friends. Jeth looked up at the stars that had once been symbols of oppression. Now they represented possibility. The Vorex had terrorized the galaxy for 5,000 years. They had believed that strength meant cruelty, that power meant domination, that the only choices were to conquer or be conquered. They had been wrong. The sleeping ones had awakened and shown the universe a different truth. Real strength was not measured in destruction. It was measured in what you chose to protect. Real power was not the ability to take. It was the ability to give. The galaxy was healing. It would take generations, perhaps centuries, to undo all the damage the Vorax had done. But for the first time in 5,000 years, that healing was possible. Because somewhere in the stars, humanity was watching, humanity was helping, humanity was ready, and they would never sleep again.